Hey guys, it's Collimations and welcome back, peoples. So today we are going to be looking at the 39 classic, The Wizard of Oz, and its similarly named book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Now, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz came before the Wizard of Oz, so there are going to be some differences. There's also a movie and the original 1900 book, featuring like Tom and Jerry, the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, the Muppets Wizard of Oz, and so on. But none of them really evolve into a book series or is very faithful to the books. Today we're going to be talking about the differences and basically what they changed and what they kept in the Wizard of Oz. So let's get started, peeps.
Why am I like this?
Okay, so the first thing I really want to point out is Dorothy's shoes in the books and in the movies are very similar. While in some adaptations there are ruby slippers, but in most adaptations you can find magic shoes or silver shoes. Considering it's like the Muppets Wizard of Oz and After the Wizard, it's both implied that there's silver shoes.
For the people who don't even know what the frick After the Wizard is, After the Wizard is a semi-sequel to the book The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and it's basically just the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodsman trying to get to Kansas to warn Dorothy, and Dorothy's kind of going through some I don't even do what you want me to kind of thing. So that's basically what After the Wizard is.
So what's the main plot line? Well, if you've been living under a rock for 100 years, here's basically what the Wizard of Oz is in both stories. There's a young girl named Dorothy who longs to go over the rainbow, and she is taken over there but via cyclone, and she squashes the Wicked Witch of the East and gets her magic shoes, or obtains them. And then the Good Witch of the North sends her off to the Emerald City where she can get home. And then she follows a Tin Woodsman and a Cowardly Lion. There they follow the Yellow Brick Road and they get to the Emerald City only for the wizard to tell them to kill the Wicked Witch of the West. Well, in the movie it's implied, but in the books it's literally just straightforward, kill that snitch.
YouTube, please don't demonetize me.
So they go out, but they're captured by flying monkeys, or the winged monkeys, and they're taken to the Wicked Witch of the West, and Dorothy splurs water on her, like literally dumps a bucket of water on her in both versions. And then they go back to the Wizard of Oz in the Emerald City, only to find out that he's actually a humbug. Who would have thought? So after that, he tries to take Dorothy in a balloon, but none of that happens because of Toto, who also is the reason Dorothy ever went to Oz in the first place. So really, it's not Dorothy wanting to go over the rainbow, it's Toto being a snitch. Okay, so Glinda has to tell Dorothy to click her heels together 3 times, and that way she can get home. And there she finds herself back at home. Well, as in the movie, it's implied that it's a dream, but in the books, Oz is very much a real place. And in the movie, it was going to be real, considering in the very last scene, everyone was going to be asleep. There was actually an alternate ending where Dorothy wakes up and everyone else is asleep, and then she pulls back the covers only to reveal the ruby slippers still on her feet, implying that it was all a dream. But in the end, we got the scene that's so heartwarming to everyone, and she says, "Oh, Annie, there's no place like home," which is kind of the most famous quote in that movie, considering that there's no place like home, and Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. That's actually some of the most famous scenes in the history of all time. Who would have thought? Okay, so now we're going to get into the main plot of the stories, considering both Dorothy from the books and in the movie. So let's start off with Dorothy's basic character. I like Dorothy in the books because she's way more adventurous and more, you mess with me, if you mess with both of us, girl, you gonna get it. As in the movie, she's just I'm gonna let the man do it for me all, considering that stereotypical Disney princess. But whereas in the book, she's actually more of a female empowerment. So that's why the book wins for Dorothy. Now let's move on to the other characters. So the other characters consist of the Scarecrow, the Tin Woodsman, and the Cowardly Lion, and also Glinda. So let's talk about the movie. Well, I like the movie more in this situation because the Scarecrow grows gradually more smarter, whereas in the book it's just like, oh, he's smarter from the beginning, even though he doesn't have a brain. Who would have thought? So, I also like the Tin Man in the story because he doesn't have to chop off all of his limbs to get the heart. Like, he was made by a Tin Woodsman, and that's all, the Tinsmith, and that's all we have to do. Whereas in the book, he literally has to chop all of his limbs off, including his brain and heart, to be the Tin Woodsman. And also, I like the Cowardly Lion more because he's more of an actual coward, whereas in the books, he's just more of a, I'm scared of everything, but I'm still gonna do brave stuff. Also, he's really funny in the movie, but then there's also this snitch. In the books, there are two good witches. The Witch of the North, who is actually named Orin or Tatty Poo in the books, but I prefer to use Orin because that's her original name. And then Glinda, the Good Witch of the South. These two were combined together to make this snitch, who ultimately says, oh, keep tight inside of them. Their magic must be very powerful, or she wouldn't want them.
Keep tight inside of them. Their magic must be very powerful, or she wouldn't want them so badly.
And then at the end of the movie, she says, all you have to do is click your heels together 3 times.
Need to be helped any longer? You've always had the power to go back to Kansas.
But why didn't you tell her before?
Or she wouldn't have believed me.
Oh, I see.
Are you trying to help Dorothy, or are you just a basic snitch? Like, come on. Like, you can't, Like, I like that, but, like, why continue it? I mean, you can have Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, and then you could just have a Good Witch of the South that appears, and it's literally Glinda, played by the same actress, but she's the Good Witch of the South, not Glinda herself. It could be her twin, and maybe she could be in a blue dress instead of a pink. I don't know, but, like, come on. Like, seriously, you could have done something. And that's why the movie wins this round, even though the Glinda in this version is literally just a basic snitch. That doesn't mean I like the movie, that I like the book more. So for that reason, the movie wins. Now let's talk about the antagonists. Oh, my favorite part. Now, I didn't really have a lot to go off of here because while the Wicked Witch of the West in the book is supposed to be the antagonist, she doesn't really do anything. I mean, yeah, she tries to steal Dorothy's shoes, but she makes little to no effort. I mean, yeah, she tries to kill Dorothy, but there's also this protection mark that Dorothy has, and it's like a really shiny mark on her forehead. But that concludes any from danger. So the Wicked Witch of the West doesn't really have that much, whereas in the movie, holy shoot.
I'm saying that because I don't want to get demonetized.
Does she have a lot of stuff? That's, like, this scene from the movie not only scared me, it freaking horrified me from the rest of my life. I could not sleep, I could not eat, I could not drink, because I'll be thinking about you.
Oh my god, stop. No one wants to listen to that, even if you do like Maddie B.
So, that's why the movie wins for me right here, because the Wicked Witch of the West in the books is a very famous character, but ultimately in the movie she just kind of sells it, but she's just that more scary in the books. Now let's talk about imagery. While I love the Wizard of Oz in the movies, the imagery, it sort of gives off as a fake, but it's also a dream, but I feel like they could have added more. But in the books, I like the imagery more because it's more beautiful, and W.W. Denslow's colors paintings really brings out that pop and color, whereas in the movie, it's just, I mean, you could try a little bit more, but it ultimately, I just feel like they could have done something. They always filmed in an interior town sound, and interior sound stage, but ultimately they could have filmed outside, which really would have brought it out, but I guess the book wins here because it gives more of a real pop, and that's why the book wins, leaving leaving it at one last category, which is Oz and Dorothy's Shoes. I combined these two because, to be honest, they're just both the same. Now, whereas in the movie, Oz is supposed to be a dream and Dorothy's shoes are Ruby, it really brings out that pop. And also, in the books, Dorothy's silver shoes doesn't really bring out a pop, but Oz itself is more of a real pop and a real world, whereas in the movie, it's just a dream. Well, unless you add in that scene, which we'll never get back. But Oz is implied to be a real world in the books, whereas in the movie, it's just, oh yeah, Auntie Em, I'm home again. And that's why it's a tie. Well, the reason I decided it to be a tie was because, one, they're just that good of a movie and book. And while I really like the book more, I also like The Wizard of Oz for its more darker scenes and more of its scary scenes. I also like the comedy, whereas in the book there's not a lot of dark theories and stuff. But which do I think is better? I can't really decide because these two things, but if we're talking about The Wizard of Oz and Return to Oz, this will win more because it's more faithful to the books, and it's also got the ruby slippers. So that's why both of them won, because they're equally good and they're equally better. While the movie gives more of a backstory to Dorothy, the imagery and Oz and Dorothy's shoes itself are just, well, not Dorothy's shoes, but Oz itself, and the fact that it's real just gives it more of depth. And that's why both of them win.
But that literally makes no sense.
Because they're both equally good stories, and I can't really decide because I love The Wizard of Oz, and I also love these books. So that's why they're my favorite. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then leave a like and subscribe. And that's all for today, guys. The next review I will be doing is Return to Oz, which I'm actually really proud of. So, yeah. Alright, bye guys.